from the month of October, pipeline between India and Nepal. India is considering setting up more pipelines for transporting refined petroleum products to Nepal. Dependence of Nepal on India for petroleum products. Nepal is significantly dependent on India for petroleum products. In financial year 2021-22, Nepal imported petroleum products worth 300 billion Nepali rupees, which was 90% more than the imported amount of fossil fuels during the previous year. Current petroleum pipelines between India and Nepal: a 69-kilometer petroleum pipeline between Motihari in Bihar and Amlekganj in Nepal's Bara district, constructed with India's assistance, is already in operation. It was inaugurated in 2019 and is being used for supplying diesel from IOC to Nepal Oil Corporation. Future petroleum pipelines between India and Nepal. Nepal has sought India's technical support and grant assistance to construct two more petroleum pipelines project under government to government agreement. One is for the construction of 52-kilometer pipeline from Siliguri to in West Bengal to Jhapa in Nepal, and another 69-kilometer pipeline connecting Amlekganj in to Lothar in Chitwan district, both within Nepal, as an extension to the Motihari Amlekganj pipeline. Once completed, these pipelines will supply fuel for aircraft and other petroleum products to Nepal, substantially reducing fuel transport costs. So, looking at the map, here is Motihari, there's Amlekganj, and the pipeline. Now, advantages for Nepal: it reduces pump price by 2 rupees per liter, prevents pilferage and adulteration, uninterrupted supply during blockades or stirs. What works for India further deepens engagement with Nepal, gives IOC a captive customer. Now, the 69-kilometer pipeline runs from Bihar's Motihari to Nepal's Amlekganj. 325 crores spent to build it in 15 months. 2 million tons motor fuel is its annual wheeling capacity. Now, moving on, China remains a formidable challenge, said by Indian Naval Chief. The Chief of Naval Staff, while addressing a seminar on security challenges, has labeled China as a formidable challenge. Now, the key highlights from the Naval Chief's address are: China's presence in Indian Ocean region, Indian Navy's lead in indigenization efforts, and lessons from the Ukraine war. Now, China has begun its Indian Ocean maritime deployment in Indian Ocean region in 2008 using anti-piracy operations as the reason, and since then there has been a continuous presence in this region. At any point, there are 5 to 8 Chinese Navy units, warships, or research vehicles operating in the Indian Ocean region. China now has a base in Djibouti and has been involved in the development of various ports in the Indian Ocean region: Sri Lanka, Myanmar, Pakistan, and so many other countries. Hence, India has to maintain a high level of operational preparedness at all times. It also increases the importance of infrastructure development across northern borders. Now, around 29 ships commissioned in the past 7 years were constructed in India, and 38 out of the 40 ships presently under construction were also built at Indian shipyards. The aim of Navy is to be fully Atmanirbhar by 2047. Ukraine war: it is easy to start a war, but a major challenge is to terminate it. There are also lessons in the use of media and social media to weaponize cognitive domain. Moving on to grey zone capabilities, the Chief of Indian Armies emphasized the need for India to develop grey zone capabilities. Now, the grey zone describes a set of activities that occur between war and peace situation. Generally, grey zone activities are considered gradualist campaigns by states and non-state actors that combine non-military and quasi-military tools. These actions are different from an armed conflict. They are often tailored towards vulnerabilities of the target state. For instance, nefarious economic activities, influence operations, cyber attacks, mercenary operations, assassinations, disinformation campaigns, etc. Now, China and grey zone capabilities. China over the last decade has emerged as fine practitioner of grey zone warfare. They have excellent fusion between their civilian and military naval assets. For instance, the so-called Chinese scientific vessel Yang Wang 5 was docked at Sri Lanka's Hambantota port. In reality, it was a spy ship capable of tracking intercontinental missiles. Chinese deploying civilian travelers in a maritime militia to assert their maritime claims in the South China Sea. China's so called nine dash land cartographical innovation that laid claim to almost all the South China Sea region. They encroached upon traditional fishing grounds and exclusive economic zones of the neighboring states. Example 220 Chinese fishing vehicles had intruded into Whiteson Reef area, which is part of Philippines' exclusive economic zone. Chinese civilian military maritime forces mean formidable strategic and tactical worries for India. Steps for India: India must upgrade its coastal defense and sharpen its naval fleet. Along with INS Vikrant, India needs many more high tech naval vessels and listening ports to counter China's threat. Moving on to Nobel Peace Prize 2020. The Nobel Peace Prize 2020 has been jointly awarded to Belarusian human rights advocate and Russian human rights organization Memorial and Ukrainian human rights organization Center for Civil Liberties. Now, contributions of the Nobel Peace Prize 2020 winners: Azel Bialysky Memorial and Center for Civil Liberties. He is the founder of Viesna, that is Els Bialystaki, a human rights center in Belarus. He has been protesting against the autocratic rule of President Alexander Lukashenko, who took over the country in 1994. Bilasiki has been arrested many times, but he has not yielded and has been working for the protection of human rights and democracy in Belarus. He is under detention at present. He was also awarded the Right Livelihood Award, nicknamed the Alternate Nobel Prize in 2020. Now, Memorial, it is a Russian human rights organization started in 1987 in the erstwhile USSR. The organization was started as a movement to expose repression under the regime. Eventually, it expanded into civil society groups that ran a museum, a library, an archive, and support centers to help Soviet era repression victims and their family members. At present, Memorial is working on compilation of information on political repressions and human rights violations in Russia. Moving on to Center for Civil Liberties, it is a Ukrainian human rights organization for civil liberties founded in Kiev in 2007. Its aim is to transform the country into a full democracy. In 2014, when Russia invaded Ukraine and annexed Crimea, the Center for Civil Liberties participated in mobile monitoring groups in Crimea as well as in Donbass. The organization is presently focused on identifying and documenting Russian war crimes following the invasion of Ukraine in February 2022. Color Revolution. Now, the President of China has appealed to India, Russia, and other members of SCO to cooperate to prevent foreign powers from destabilizing their countries by enticing color revolutions. Color Revolution refers to a series of uprisings that first began in the former communist nation in Eastern Europe in early 2000s, but are also used in reference to popular movements in Middle East and Asia. Most have involved large-scale mobilization on the streets with demand for free elections or regime change and call for removal of authoritarian leaders. Some color revolutions in the recent past include Orange Revolution, Tulip Revolution, and Jasmine Revolution. Now, Orange Revolution refers to the series of protests occur in Ukraine between 2004 and 2005. The movement was in response to reports from international and domestic observers that the presidential election was triggered. Tulip Revolution, also called the Revolution, the movement led to ouster of Kyrgyzstan's president Akayev in early 2005. Jasmine Revolution, the popular uprising that occurred between 2010 and 2011 in Tunisia, was in response to underlying corruption and unemployment, inflation, and lack of political freedom in the country. That'll be it.